Hello there. What is going on, everybody? I am very excited today because it is my genuine pleasure to be able to bring to you a preview of Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia. We're going to be taking a look at the prototype from this game by Archon Studios. This is, of course, subject to change, being a prototype copy, but it is beautiful. Everything about this game is absolutely gorgeous. I think you're going to be very impressed. And if at the end of the video you like what you see, I invite you to pledge over at Gamefound. There's going to be a link in the video description below. Also, if you want to stick around and click that subscribe button, I'd love for you to hang out and check out some of the other links in the description below as well. This game is going to bring back all of that nostalgia from the 1980s Masters of the Universe. If you're a child of the 80s like me, or maybe not, and you just happen to really like Masters of the Universe, this has all of the sweet spots, all of the toys, all of the cartoon goodness rolled up into one box. I am in love with this game, and I hope you will be too, because I'm going to show it to you. Let's take a closer look at Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia. Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia is an area control victory point game where you are going to be building a team of 3 heroes going up against a team of 3 villains trying to compete for control of Eternia. You're going to be moving around the board from different iconic areas to other different areas, trying to gain the most control, gain Eternium, which is the currency of this game, and ultimately gain victory points over the course of 10 rounds, which each have a day and night cycle. You'll be buying items, spells, and vehicles. You'll be doing combat against beasts, epic beasts, and of course other heroes, and trying to reinforce your own lands while taking over your opponent's lands, and also doing quests. Let's take a look at some of these amazing characters and the minis. Let's take a look at the minis. Fields of Eternia is a 1 to 6 player game, so you do have a solo mode available. But if you're playing up to 6, then you're going to have 3 versus 3. Everybody's going to grab 1 hero or villain, and then you'll form a team of 3 versus 3. This plays very well as a 2-player game if you want to go just good versus evil. If you do a 2-player game of this, each player is going to have to control 3 heroes or 3 villains. So first off, we have, well, let's look at He-Man first, since he's kind of the star of the game, right? We got He-Man right here. These are great miniatures, by the way. Really detailed miniatures. I love this. And they also have really detailed basing too. I think that's worth pointing out. We have She-Ra, who is very cool. I thought she might be in like her own game or a separate expansion, but she does appear to come in the base game, which is really cool. I'm gonna just do all the heroes first. We've got Man-at-Arms right here with his excellent armor. Man-at-Arms looks super groovy, and all of the heroes are in blue, by the way. We have Teela, who you might recognize as a pretty important character from the show. We have Stratos, our winged friend, who has the ability to fly, and that is actually going to be important when you get into the game, because there are areas that are impassable without flying. And we have Ram Man, the only action figure that had like no movable arms at all. He just had his spring-loaded legs. Let me know in the comments section if you remember Ram Man being like a cool figure, but you couldn't really play with him very much outside of just pushing those springs and letting him go. For the villains, we have Skeletor here with, oh, he's making a corny joke, and he's like, I like being evil. I don't know, how good was that Skeletor impression? I don't know how good it was. Let's take a look at Beast Man. Oh, yes, Beast Man. Let's take a look at Beast Man there. He's got that big old whip. Woo, I don't want to get whipped by that. We have Evelyn. And look, you know what's great? Look at her staff. Look how straight that staff is. Archon makes really good miniatures. I'm just saying, they make good miniatures. This isn't bent or bowed at all. And a lot of that has to do with the insert. And I know this is a prototype, but they sent such a good insert with the prototype. I mean, I can't wait to see the finished product. Like, they just have really, really good organizers and inserts in their base games. It's just incredible. Here we have Merman. Look at that trident, dude. That's perfectly straight. This is so awesome. I love these miniatures. I love the size. They're just like I feel like I could just take these and put them in any other game and be like, no, this is my hero now. I'm not. I'm Dungeons and Dragons? No, I'm He-Man now. As a matter of fact, no, I'm gonna be Trapjaw. Here's Trapjaw, right? And he's gonna swap out that arm for a big claw or whatever. Oh man, I had so many of these as action figures. And Triclops. We're gonna spin his head around and use the infrared eye or something like that. It's Triclops. Very, very cool. So these are the heroes that are in the prototype. I imagine there will probably be some stretch goals or optional extras. Who knows what will be unlocked or what new surprises will be waiting for us. But those are the basic heroes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 3 from each, and we'll kind of do a little quick setup and show you how the game plays. All right, so we've chosen all of our heroes right now, and in this game, every character is a hero just for game purposes. So I've gone with He-Man, Man-at-Arms, and Teela, and Skeletor, Merman, and Eva Lynn. Just so we can look at some of the cards here and get an idea of how a hero's card is going to look. You're going to see a lot of different things here. First off, you're going to have a picture. Awesome artwork, by the way. The artwork in this game is really incredible. We'll have to look at some of the rulebook art. Is really just epic level, like 1980s heavy metal, beautiful stuff. We have the art over here. We have that character's name, also their faction symbol. This is going to be important because there's going to be certain encounters that are, if you're a certain faction, you can recruit them as an ally. Or if you're another faction, you'll have to fight them. So faction symbols are important. They have different weapons that they can use in combat. So He-Man can use magic or melee. There's also a ranged, so there's kind of a rock, scissors, paper mechanic to the different types of weapons that can be used. But each one of these is going to have a surge ability. So whichever one you choose when you're doing battle against somebody like Skeletor will come into effect later on when we talk about epic combat. They're also going to have special abilities that are highlighted down here, and also they're going to have stats at the very top, such as health, mind, body, initiative, and movement. And movement, of course, is going to be one of the things that comes in early because that's how we move around. But these are going to apply to hit points, how many dice you roll in Wilds combat, and then other abilities that take place during epic combat, which is when we have actual heroes versus heroes, or even certain mythical beasts will also use a form of epic combat, which is very, very cool. And as you can see, Skeletor has a different symbol, as well as he has his own surge abilities for different weapon types and his own abilities on his card. And every character is going to have one of these. We're going to have all 6 on the board, and we will place our characters. But I want to show you a little bit about the board and what the different symbols on the different areas mean. So the heroes are going to deploy over here at Castle Grayskull, and as you can see, there's a base symbol on Castle Grayskull. That basically means that it's a safe zone. Enemies cannot ever enter that. We have a lot of these fortifications, these city areas, but the spaces in between those are actually spaces where heroes can move. So for one movement point, you could move here, and then maybe on another turn for another movement point, you could move here. So movement is kind of slow, and that's why movement abilities are very, very important. Vehicles and everything else to make you move faster. When you are in between two cities, that's known as the wilds, and there's all kinds of encounters we can have when we are in the wilds. Everybody's going to have 2 actions, so you'll be able to move and do a wilds combat, or maybe move and do a quest, or bring some of your reinforcements. That we'll talk about that a little bit more soon. But outside of the bases, there are actually 3 bases. You'll notice we have the Temple of Hordak over here, which does certainly hint that we may be getting extra factions and allow for multi-faction play in this game at some point. The villains, our Skeletor's forces, are going to deploy over here at the Temple of Serpos, which is really cool. So we have kind of, they're kind of far from each other, but that's not too much of a problem because there are certain towers on the board, such as this Viper Tower here, the Central Tower, and of course the Grayskull Tower, which do allow quick movement between them. So you can go from one to the other, and that is going to save you a lot of movement. And that also kind of means that certain safe zones aren't as safe because I could kind of warp in over your defended areas. There is also another tower up top, but that is not a fast travel tower. That's the Dragon Tower. Now, there's going to be other symbols for different places. For example, the E symbol we'll see here in the Great Jungle, or as well as other places like the Eldar's Village. That's going to be an Eternium. If you control one of these zones at the beginning of your turn, you're going to gain money, or Eternium. That's how you were going to buy things. There are also other symbols for the different shops. Like this one actually has 2 symbols. So if you control Eldor's Village, you're going to have access to the spell shop. The Village of Gaz is going to give you access to the equipment shop, and then the Faux Castle is going to give you access to the vehicle shop. And so having at least one fortification with one of those symbols allows you to purchase, or allows your heroes on their turn to purchase from those shops. And if you control multiples, then you'll actually get a discount for each one above the first. And you're going to see different symbols on different places all throughout. Eternium is going to be one of the most important things, though, because each team is going to start with 10 Eternium, and you're going to be spending that very, very quickly. Plus, if you get killed, you're going to lose 5 Eternium, so you gotta save that Eternium. Let's take a look at the shops and see what you can get from there. So when you're buying from a store, you can pick like one of these shops to buy from, but you can't buy from all 3 in the same turn. But the spells have just various different magic spells: Fireball, Thunder, Revival, Healing. They can be offensive or defensive, or even sometimes utility, and like letting all kinds of things happen. The cool thing about spells is you can actually cast them on your friends or enemies in combat, even if you're far away. So they're kind of like long distance abilities. Equipment, on the other hand, is more tangible goods. This is your shields, your armor, the battle armor. Dudes, do you remember the battle armor? I remember battle armor. One of the cool things about these are nice little Easter eggs to the toys, because when I was a kid, I didn't get the very first He-Man. The very first He-Man and Skeletor, like, I guess they weren't reprinted, or weren't reprinted for a long time. So if you weren't like one of the first kids to get one, you had to go a long time without getting a He-Man. So then they started reprinting like different versions of He-Man, and this was the one that I got. It was the battle armor He-Man. And he had like a spring-loaded chest, and so you would flick it, he would get like hit by an enemy's sword, and then it would become cracked, and it would roll to a different one, and then you flick it again, and it would roll to the third like really damaged battle armor, and then you have to wind it back into its pristine condition. There's also potions, which are consumables, and I love this. They put in Skeletor's version of the battle armor also as the battle armor 2, which I just love. There's so much nostalgia in this game. It's incredible, and it really comes into play when we look at the vehicles. Vehicles are going to give your character movement. So this is going to give you +2 movement. So now for one movement action, you can move up to 3 spaces, which is incredible. And this also gives you, sometimes the vehicles are going to give you extra things. And of course, up at the top is going to be the Eternium cost. How much money does your team have to pay for you to buy this? And that's one thing where it's interesting if you're playing like a 6-player game, because your money is for your whole team. Who remembers the Dragon Walker? This thing had a little handle behind it, and the back would like swivel around. Like this one gives you extra movement and also can breathe fire on other people. Do you remember? Oh yeah, the Roton with this red piece used to actually spin around. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. And the flying vehicles are important because there are certain areas on the map with if there's a zone and there's water in between, you can't cross the water. There'll be a special symbol. And flying vehicles let you go over that. Who remembers Land Shark? Oh my god. And there's there's a lot of other cool things in here. The Sky Sled. This is a cool one. A hero may equip both the Battle Ram and the Sky Sled, because normally you can only have one vehicle. Or there's also mounts, right? Like you can get Cringer and like tame him and ride Battle Cat, that sort of thing. But look at that. If you guys remember this one? The Battle Ram, like this is such a cool throwback to the toy, because it used to actually detach from the bigger tank, and then it would go back on. And so if you have these, this is like breaking the rule of, hey, you can have both of these together if you want, which is just so awesome. This one's flying, but doesn't give you the extra speed, but this one gives you the extra speed, and they also give you some extra stats in battle. This is just chock full of nostalgia. It's really just making me smile, even just talking about it right now. The other thing that's going to happen at the beginning of the game is each character is going to get a victory card, or if you're playing 1 versus 1, you're going to get a victory card for each character you control. So the good guys would get 3 victory cards, bad guys would get 3 victory cards, and these are going to be victory point conditions for you. They're going to be secret. You're not going to reveal these to your opponent, but they can be things like friendly hero wins an epic in combat as the defender. So like somebody attacks you, but you fight them off. you're gonna then reveal this and be like, haha, I got a victory point. And then they also they have, like, once you get it, you can get another victory point by doing it again. And so these are really nice, kind of like, my plans are secret, but now as it gets revealed, oh, you can see the deeper, more the 2 victory point plan. And so there's going to be a whole wealth of these. If you get victory cards that you don't like, there is a way that you can discard one and get another one through one of your actions and paying some Eternium, but there's a whole wealth of these, and these are going to make the game a little bit different every time as well. So that is very cool. You've also got a couple of other decks that we're going to look at. There's going to be, depending on the scenario you're playing, for example, the first scenario is called Fractures in Time. There's going to be different quests that you can do on the board. They're going to look like this, and when you attempt a quest, you'll pick up that token and flip over one of these cards, and you'll be able to either follow what it says, like, hey, you know what, you want to capture and hold the Eldor's village zone until the start of the next day, and then if you do that, you're going to gain a victory point. Or maybe there'll be an epic beast for you to fight, and these are really cool because they're going to use epic combat, and it's going to you'll basically roll these epic dice, and these are going to give you some additional bonuses to fight against this monster. I'm going to talk about epic combat in just a minute, but basically they can hit you for 4 points of damage, and you got to try and stop that, or get through their defenses, which is 2, and then get 7 damage on them to try to defeat them within 2 rounds. Otherwise, they escape. So like really cool stuff. But sometimes you can even tame a beast and then use that in place of a vehicle, and you can kind of ride them, and that's always cool stuff. Like there's even some in here that fly, and so all of a sudden if you were to beat this guy and then pay 3 Eternium to tame him, you would have a flying mount that would give you a +1 attack and +2 speed, which is super, super cool, the different things that you can do in this game. I love it. If you're in the wilds, also you can pull a wilds encounter. So let's talk about actions and encounters. So I'm gonna just kind of fast forward and say I'm on maybe turn 2 or turn 3, and my heroes are kind of venturing out. I want to try and gain control of these different areas, and to have control of them, I have to keep a hero there, and I have to have it at the beginning of a day turn to gain the benefit. The thing about that is it's going to be hard to keep your heroes in one spot for a long time. So one of the actions, if I'm in a city, I can basically summon reinforcements, and the reinforce command is going to take these little guys out of my inventory. And of course we have little miniatures that represent kind of like Eternium troops, right? These are kind of like your non-heroes, but they're troops, and they're cool, and they count as control. They also do a damage to anybody who comes in, and you can use them to attack as well. It's okay though, the villains have theirs as well, and they're these they look like these little robots, right? They're little evil kill bots. Pretty cool stuff, and you have only 15 of these per side, so you have to use them diligently, but you can also move them. When you're summoning these guys, you can also instead choose to move them if you're in an adjacent zone or in the same zone. So I can say, you know what, I want 2 of these guys to go over to the village of the Orcas and leave 1 behind, and you can never have more than 3 in one zone. So that's kind of a good way to kind of spread your forces out and do the area control aspect. That's an important way to do that. So that's one thing you can do, because you can only do, out of your 2 actions you have, you can only do the same action once. So you can't move and then move again. But I could move and then reinforce, and of course summon reinforcements all to this zone. I could then have He-Man move and maybe do a wilds encounter. And so how that works is I will pull a card from the encounters deck, and it will be maybe some type of mission. Hey, you come across a broken down caravan. The owner approaches you. Robbers have attacked me. Protect me, and I will reward you. And then it has an effect. And of course, then you get to place this card by your hero, and then do what it says when it says it. Or there might be a monster for you to fight, like the Spelian. And the cool thing about this is then you're going to roll some dice. So this guy basically is threatening to hit you for 4 points of damage. He's got 1 armor, and he's got 2 health. So I'm going to use my character's body statistic to figure out how many dice they roll. In this case, it'll roll 7. I'll roll those dice, and then I can say, all right, well, I got a double. That counts as 2. This one also counts as 2. I got a 1 and a 1, and I can assign these to different places. So I could say I could assign both 2s to his attack stat to nullify that, and then at least he doesn't hit me. Or I could let him hit me, and maybe I have to get past his armor first, so I'll assign the 1 to there, and then assign the 2 to his health. That's going to defeat him, and I don't have enough to completely stop it, so he's still going to get through and defeat me. So basically I can assign my dice. They're either going to be 1s, 2s, blanks, or this symbol here, which allows you to re-roll it plus 1 other die. So if you have one of these, you might re-roll them, and then I rolled another one, so then I can continue to re-roll dice. But if I have multiple re-roll symbols, I have to do them all at the same time. So you can potentially turn a bad dice pool into a good dice pool if you have one or more of these show up. So basically you'll assign dice to the different numbers on his card. If you have enough to get through his armor and his health, then you can defeat him and gain the rewards, which is an X2. And that's going to talk about epic combat. So you'll be gaining these cards. This is important because there's also a deck building aspect to this game, because this is just regular wilds combat. Like, this is like low level people. Right? There are also high level combat, like when you want to fight Skeletor, right? And that's also really cool. Now the other cool thing that's in here is there's a good blend of different characters you can encounter. Oh, is that Cringer in the wild? So a cool thing here is that if you defeat him, you can then pay to Eternia to recruit him. And now he is your mount, and then he kind of becomes Battle Cat, right? And so and the other thing that's kind of cool is here's the different factions that can use him. Wait a second, I recognize those 2 factions. What are those? Spoilers. You'll have to stay tuned and find out, because there may be some more factions coming to this game. You also have allies that you can potentially recruit. But look, he's only for the good guys, right? Anybody else is going to have to fight him. So lots of really cool things can happen out in the wilds, and it counts as your wilds action, pulling an encounter card. Very, very cool to do wilds combat. The other thing you can do is you can move into a place where we have another villain or another hero. If you are, maybe a Skeletor is doing it, maybe Skeletor spends an action to move into here with He-Man, then all of a sudden we have to do epic combat. This is a really, really cool system, and I feel like epic combat is its own game within a game. So let's talk about epic combat. So for epic combat, we each have a battle board. And so Skeletor is going to use this one, He-Man's going to use this one. This is where a lot of our card is going to come into place. We're also going to pick which weapon we're going to use, and this boils down to surge cards. Basically, you're going to have certain cards that might trigger one of these abilities, so that's worth keeping in mind. But at its core, you start out with a combat deck. Each side is going to have one. It's going to have 21 cards in it. Now you're going to have more cards than this, because in addition to this combat deck of 21 cards, I've got a whole bunch more cards that I can get. This is kind of deck building. Remember that X2 reward I could have gotten if I beat that wilds combat? Well, I've got a lot of X1 cards in this deck, and of course bigger numbers are better. There's also some specialties, and there's X1s, X2s, and X3s, as well as bonus cards with fancy symbols on there that do really fancy, cool things. So basically, what's going to happen is I'm going to, as the attacker, I'm going to draw a card in secret, and I can lay it down, face down on my board. And what I'm doing is I'm boosting my stats for the combat, and it's going to be basically numbers versus numbers. The 3 areas are attack. How much damage am I going to deal to He-Man on this first round? Because we're only going to have 2 rounds of epic combat. The second stat is defense. How much of He-Man's damage to me am I going to be able to nullify? And then the last one is initiative. Whose attack goes first? Because you have to survive in order to hit back. And as a bonus, the initiative phase, whoever wins initiative, not only do they attack first, but they also do a bonus point of damage right away to the defender. So if your opponent is really, really weak and has only 1 hit point left, you may want to really stack up the initiative to do a damage to him before you can even attacks back. So for example, let's just say I have a 2, I'm going to lay this down here. Now my opponent doesn't know what I've got, they'll draw a card, and let's just say they draw an X1, they don't like it, they have that mind power, so they can say, you know what, I'm going to discard this one and draw another one, and then they have to do that. And they can do that up to once or twice per turn, like kind of depending on what their mind statistic is. The higher their mind number, the more that they get to do that ability. So let's just say I drew an X3, and I'm going to put that over here too. Maybe I'm going to put, I saw, oh, Skeletor is going big attack, maybe I'm going to put it for defense, and I'll put one there. And we're going to do this until 4 cards have been played, we're going to play this for the attacker has kind of the disadvantage because they have to lay down their cards first. The defender gets a little bit of a bonus because they get to see where the attacker places a card first. So that then Skeletor, I draw another one. Oh, this is the wrong deck because the additive decks have a little plus symbol on there. The cards you start with have your faction symbol. So there are some specialty cards too, like if I play this card, I immediately discard this card and draw 2 more and place 1 and discard the other. So it gives me a little bit more knowledge. I'm more likely to get like a ×2 or a ×3 instead of a ×1. So maybe I draw a ×1. I use my mind power. I don't want that one. Let me discard it and draw another one. I got an X1. I'm going to put this one down at initiative. I want to go first. Now it's He-Man's turn. He'll go back and forth. He'll play another one. He'll play something up here, and we'll keep going. Once all 4 have been played, we're going to flip all of the cards over. So let me just put 4 out here, and we'll just say that this is kind of what happened. Okay, well, that's a bad one, because that one's going to give me an extra card. So there's certain ones that say, oh, you know what, this doesn't count as your 4 limit. Place an extra one. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. You're probably looking at these and saying, wait a second, that says ×2 and ×1. Well, think of that as a plus some symbol turned sideways, because they're really not multipliers. It's just one extra hit. So the number is what they're all additive. So whatever your combat power is, now normally characters have a combat power of 0, so they need at least 1 to do damage. Sometimes a mount or equipment or swords and things like that give you bonus combat power in epic combat. And let's just say He-Man had this. So we would flip all of these over. Certain characters have initiative built in. So He-Man has an initiative of 2. Skeletor has an initiative of only 1, naturally. So He-Man would have initiative of 4. Skeletor would have initiative of only 2 once we flipped everything over. And then, of course, then we would start adding everything up. That means He-Man's going to go first. He would do 1 damage to Skeletor. He does 1, but it doesn't get through Skeletor's defenses. Then Skeletor would do 2. It wouldn't get through He-Man's defenses. So nobody actually attacks anybody, but Skeletor did take a damage. Now, I talked about having to pick a weapon that we're going to use. And we mark, if Skeletor is going to use his sword, he would put this symbol on there. Or if he was going to use magic, he'd put this symbol on his card to say which one that he was kind of committing to. This is a Surge card. And there's only 2 of them in your starting deck, but you can potentially earn more. But this allows you to, it counts as an X1, but it also gives you a Surge activation. And these are cool because they can do all kinds of fancy things. Like if you've got a Surge on there, and maybe I chose a Sword of Power, I'd gain +1 in that Surge card's zone, or +2 versus Epic Beasts. And an opponent's zone gains -1. So they're kind of surprise cards that help swing the balance of power. And so the Surge cards can be really cool. Skeletor has choices on his, like if he goes with his Havoc Staff, he can either get +1 attack or +1 defense, or both players swap their attack and defense zones. So he has like 3 choices to be able to make with that one. And so it's important to know what weapon your opponent has chosen, and that might allow you to adjust your card play a little bit. But once this is all done, you're going to discard all of these and play again with the remaining cards in your deck. You're only going to do 2 rounds. Once that is done, you're going to reshuffle and then because you're going to call the end of the combat there, and whoever did more health to the other one is considered the winner. You don't have to kill somebody to win. You'll just knock them out of the zone. You get to move them by 1 if they lose. Now, if you do kill them, they go back to their starting zone and they lose 5 Eternium from their team's supply. If they don't have 5 Eternium, they also have to discard items until a value of 5 has been met, which might mean, you know, if the only thing you had was a 7-point battle armor, you end up losing more than that because you can always go over, but not less than. So dying is a big deal. You get moved all the way back to your starting zone, and you're probably going to lose some stuff. So you don't want to die. But if you just lose and get kicked out, okay, well that's not so bad. But that might trigger somebody's victory condition. So by now you're probably wondering, well, how do you win? When does the game end? Well, each turn, once the round is over, you're going to advance this to the next turn. There's 10 turns. You'll notice that the first turn is a daytime turn, the second turn is a nighttime turn. The big difference between day turns and night turns are that at the beginning of night, everybody's going to heal 1. You also have the option of resting. and kind of going to sleep, wasting an action to heal more than that. But during the daytime turns, you're going to gain Eternium for all of the zones you control that have that little Eternium symbol. Some zones even have more than one Eternium symbol, so you can gain multiple Eternium by spreading out. And especially good if you want to start buying cool items from the item shop, you're going to really need lots of Eternium. Now, also you're going to notice that periodically throughout the course tracker, there are little skull symbols. These are going to trigger quest events in the mission book. Did I talk about how awesome this artwork is? Look at this amazing artwork. It's gorgeous. Oh my gosh, look at, and by the way, since I'm on that discussion, look at the rule book. Oh my goodness, it's gorgeous. So, but yeah, the mission book is going to outline the quests and what exactly happens at each stage. And of course, more quests are easily addable. Of course, you know, you're going to do something at the beginning of the game. It's going to tell you where you place certain quest tokens and or other tokens that are mission specific. But then on the third turn, there may be like something happens, like, hey, everybody takes damage. On another one, oh, maybe you're going to place more tokens out, and it's going to tell you where they go, and more like time rifts are opening. And towards the end of the game, for at least for this one, if the score is close, if you guys are really close on victory points, you have like an epic duel, an epic showdown. Because, oh, by the way, if you win, if you defeat somebody else, you're going to gain a victory point for that as well. So combat is another way to gain victory points. And of course, you count your victory points with these handy dandy victory point tokens. At the end of the last turn, whoever has the most victory points is the winner. And I like the fact that if you're close, even if you're behind, but you're kind of close within striking distance, you can still have an epic showdown and potentially end up winning, which is very cool. All right, you guys, that is Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia. I really, really like it. I mean, it's got so much nostalgia, which is a big selling point for me, but also it's got so much story in there too. Between the encounters that can happen, maybe Skeletor recruits Battle Cat, and that's the motivation for He-Man to come seek him out and find him. The area control gives you a lot of things to do. I feel it really plays very, very well as a two-player game. It does have also a cooperative and solo play as well. Additionally, there's other modes. If you don't want to do the entire quest, you can just do a skirmish style game where you're just fighting each other. There are a lot of different modes to play, but I really, really like the scenario mode. There's multiple scenarios in this core game. There's a lot of game here, and it takes up a lot of table space as well. The miniatures are gorgeous. The combat system is very, very cool. There's actually so many different ways to do combat. You can also bring in minions and have them, basically kind of suicide and explode onto heroes before your hero attacks and soften them up a little bit. And of course, you've got iconic characters. You can change up the roster in between. And who knows what new characters we'll see as more factions get added. Another kind of a bonus thing is that if you did pick up any of the mounted characters that Archon had for sale over the course of the last year, you can use those in this game too, and your hero will start with a mount, and movement speed is so important in this game. That's going to be kind of cool. It's especially cool if you have multiples, so you can say, all right, I'll start with He-Man on a mount, but you get to start with Skeletor on a mount. And this way it kind of makes things even, or you can use it as a handicap if you want to do something fancy like that. Say, you know what, you can start with a mount, I won't, because I'm a veteran and I think I'm going to beat you anyway. But that's Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia. Big thank you to Archon Studios for sending this out so I could take a look at it for you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Also, check out the other links that we have down in the video description if you want to be able to pledge for this on Gamefound. And jump in my Discord, say hi. I'd love to talk to you guys if you have any questions about it that maybe I didn't cover. Let me know down in the comment section. I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much. And big thanks to my patrons who helped make this all possible. Thank you so much. And as always, have a great day. And remember, never fight Skeletor with your hands tied behind your back.